Join me to hear marketing expert Randy Crane reveal his unconventional approach to emotional marketing, sharing his secrets on creating genuine connections with customers. Tune in to find out more.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Now, let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Randy Crane, also known as the Fearless Marketer, boasts over 40 years of experience as a renowned sales and marketing expert, working with both global brands and startups. His expertise centers on leadership and emotional marketing strategies aimed at providing genuine value to customers while positively impacting businesses. He serves as a mentor, visionary, and an accomplished master of his field, continually inspiring others to aspire to greatness and realize their entrepreneurial dreams. You can benefit from Randy's extensive knowledge and insights, leveraging his expertise in crafting emotionally resonant marketing strategies and leadership principles to enhance your own businesses and attain long-term success. So, Randy, welcome to the show.
Candy, thank you so much for having me on the show.
But before I get into questions I have for you on this subject, I'd love for you just to share a little bit more about your story and why you started teaching your marketing tips to entrepreneurs.
Well, it's kind of a strange story. It all started for me when I was a young boy. I kind of grew up in the Catholic Church, and my plans were always to become a priest. What happened to me is that I went through and got a degree in theology, and my plans were to become a priest because, I always figured that's probably one of the best selling platforms in the world. And I really like speaking, and I figured this would be a good vocation for myself. So I was about 6 weeks away from taking my vows as a priest. They give you an interview. And so while they were interviewing me, I was also interviewing them, which, thinking about it now probably wasn't a great idea, but it managed to clear things up for me. I was at the point on my vocation where I still wanted to have more truths. I needed to know more. And of course, during the interview, they were asking me very centered questions about being a priest. And I would start asking questions, like the political times that Jesus was in at that time, and what were the financial situation at the time. And of course, the Catholics don't really like that kind of conversation. So at the end of the interview, they said to me, Randy, maybe you need to rethink your vocation a little bit. I thought, that might be a good idea. And that was 43 years ago. And Candy, to be honest with you, I'm still reevaluating. To make a long story short, I needed to make money in the meantime after I left the church. So I continued reading and studying my theology. But then I wanted to learn how to become a great salesman, great marketer. So I started studying all the greats, Donald Millers, the Seth Godins of the world. Over time, what happened was the two kind of became one. And that's when emotional marketing was born for me. It was about 10 years after I had left the church. And I didn't really know what I had at the time, but I continued down that path, and this is where we are today.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Well, I know today's topic is emotional marketing, and I would love for you first to give your definition. What do you believe emotional marketing is, so that those who listen know where we're coming from in this discussion?
Great. I mean, emotional marketing, emotional anything, it is a human construct. Okay. Everybody's born with it. But, it's like I mentioned to you before, the only time we really relate to our emotions as individuals is when we need to. Like, for instance, when we fall in love. Okay. When that happens, it's overwhelming. Okay. So emotional marketing is having a clear picture that everybody has these emotions, and emotions are what drives decisions. And that's it. I mean, emotions is what drives a customer to buy your product.
Mhm.
And, as I mentioned it before, the whole idea of, you say this, I say this, you say that, I say this, you say that, you buy, or that rudimentary process of selling. It didn't work so well in the 80s. I don't know how well it worked even before that. And it certainly doesn't work in this day and age. People are responsive to their emotions in life.
Mhm.
And everybody is connected to their problems, their needs, their wants, and their desires. And they're emotionally connected to those things. Okay. So, me coming to your business or your store or whatever it is you do, and I say to you, hi, you know what, Candy, my name is Randy Crane. My company has been around for 20 years. We have the best prices, the best product, the best people, the best delivery, the best warranty. It all becomes blah, blah, blah. There's nothing inspiring about anything about that.
Mhm.
So if that's not inspiring, what needs to be inspiring? Because people want to be inspired. This
Mhm.
is the reason we read a great book.
Right.
We want to feel. When we go to a movie, we want to be scared, or we want to fall in love with the character. That's what we want. So if the blah blah doesn't inspire you, what will? Well, this is where great salespeople and great marketers really have to hone in on. What is it going to take for you to buy my product?
Mhm.
In other words, how are you going to have to feel for that to happen? And this can
Mhm.
be done through a variety of different ways. You can, if I'm sitting in front of you and you and I are just having a conversation, I can ask you some really great questions, and you can give me some really great answers, and those answers will tell me the story. On the other hand, too, I can use my own marketing ingenuity, and I can start figuring out what your problems are. And I do that by figuring out what problems my product solves. You burn your finger on the stove, or I burn my finger on the stove. You know what? We're both going to say, ouch.
Mhm.
Okay. The feelings that a person has related to a problem, whether you have the problem or I have the problem stays the same. And chances are the feelings and the emotions that drive that are the same as well. So by getting a good understanding of your customer, it really bridges the gap for you when it comes to moving them from a interested prospect to a happy customer.
Mhm. And that makes sense where you want them to, engage emotionally with your service or product so they want to buy. But how do you do that? Can you give some steps maybe to those listening who can say, okay, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure how to actually do that in my marketing?
Okay, well, you know what? I'm an old guy. Okay, I have one of these. I'm sure you can probably see it. Yep, there it is. I have one
And
of
so
those.
you're listening. Do you want to say what it is?
Oh yeah, sorry, that's a pen. And I have one of these, which is a pad. So what I would do normally is I would, when I take on any sort of new project, the first thing I want to do is I want to look at the product, and I want to figure out what problems this product solves. So I'm going to turn around, I'm going to draw a line on the piece of paper, and I'm going to figure out what the resolution is for that product. These are all the things that this product solves. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the other side of the page and I'm going to say, okay, if these are what the resolutions are, then these are what the problems are.
Mm.
These are the problems that people have. So I'm going to make a list of the problems. I'm going to draw little lines to connect which ones to which. And then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to figure, okay, if I know what the resolution is and I know what the problem is, if a person had that problem, how would they feel? How would I feel? And then I'm going to make a list of those feelings. I'm going to feel, I'm going to feel upset. I'm going to feel anxiety. I'm going to feel worry, whatever those, discomfort, whatever the thing is. And I'm going to figure out what those emotions are, because those emotions are what's going to drive the feeling. Okay? Feelings and emotions are two different things. I said to you before, do you remember falling in love?
Yep.
When you fell in love, you were in the feeling. You were in it. You couldn't just turn around and say, oh, okay, well, I had a wonderful night last night. I was really in love, but it's now the next morning. I think I'm going to be not in love anymore. You can't do that. Once you're in it for a specific period of time, whatever that period of time may be, and it changes from person to person. There is no exit door. There is no way out. You're in it. Now, it's the same thing too when you go to a movie and you see a really scary movie and your body is shaking. Okay? You can't just say, I'm not going to be scared anymore, because you're in it. And that's the feeling. So the question comes is, what drives that feeling? Because I want to get my customer to the feeling. I don't want to get my customer just to the emotion, because the emotion can be changed.
Mm-hmm.
The feeling cannot. So now I start listing the feelings that I'm feeling with each one of those problems. Okay? And then from that, once they receive the solution, how does that make them feel? What are the emotions that are going to drive that? And you know what? It may seem like a convoluted process of doing it, but once it's done, it just makes everything else expedient.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing videos, it gives you a clear picture of what the video is. If you're writing copy, it gives you a clear picture of what the copy you need to write. If you're doing a conversation with someone, you can explain this to them. You see, I've found over the years, most of the entrepreneurs or business people that I've met, they know what they do, and they know what they make, and they even know how they make it. But to have that clear picture of what their customer wants or their customer needs, they don't know. I say, well, what problem does your product solve? Oh, it does this. Well, how does that make your customer feel? I don't know. Because they never ask. So the key with great marketing is being able to get them across the bridge from that not feeling good to feeling good. People buy when they feel good. Everybody wants to buy when they feel good. Nobody wants to buy when you feel bad. Okay? Nobody wants to, if my content is confusing, if my content doesn't reach the point where that person is inspired or gets excited about my product, I'm not going to buy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But you see, the beauty of that is that neither are you, and neither is anybody else that's listening to this podcast right now. Everybody does the same thing, and that's the beauty of this. But if you omit it, if you omit that step, you're left with a process that, here's my product, this is what we do, give me your money and buy. And that doesn't work. And this is why people, it has nothing to do with the ads that you create or it has not, or the website you build. It has everything to do with the emotional feelings that people have towards your product.
Well, what I was wondering while you were talking about that too is, obviously if you're having a live conversation with someone and you can ask questions and get into that place with them where you find out what their problems are, or the solution that you have, and having them feel emotionally connected to what you are trying to do. But what if you are selling a product online, like you said, and if you just list a bunch of facts, it's like you said, blah blah blah, it's not going to connect with them. So if you are selling in a way that's not like person to person, how do you get that across to your potential buyer so they do get into that feeling?
Well, there's a variety of ways that I do it. And it really depends on how important the product or the client or whatever it is. And when I say that, it's not that every client isn't important. They all are. But, some clients have bigger budgets than others. Okay. So in most cases, what I would do is I would put together, if it's a small company, I'll probably put together a small group of people. Okay. And I'll do some interviewing, usually on Zoom or on Google Meet. And I'll sit down with them and I'll say, listen, you know what? We have this product. And I'm going to give you a day or so to study it. Okay. And then you're going to come back to me and we're going to have a conversation about the product. I'll create some questions that I'll ask them about the product. And this is part of our marketing group. Okay. And I'll get their feedback on that. Because, there might be something in there that I missed or something that didn't resonate with me or something that did resonate with me that didn't resonate with them. And this gives me, it could be anywhere between 10 and 12 people. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing some research. I'm going to start looking at the competitive products. I'm going to start looking at pricing models. I'm going to start looking at how long they've been in business, who their customers is, where are they advertising. Okay. I'm going to look at their websites. I'm going to look at the copy that they're writing. And then I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write an avatar. And I made this, this is an old way of doing things. And I don't know how many people actually do that today, but I always found it's been a great thing for me. I will sit down and I'll write a story. I'll write a story about Dave, and Dave is a forklift driver, and he has a wife, Susan, and they have 2 kids, and they live here, and he makes this much money every year, and he's looking for something new in his life, and I finally relate it back to the product or the service that we have, and I build this story about him.
Mhm.
Because what it allows me to do now is I can talk to him. Okay. And I treat him like he is my customer. And I'll even go to the extreme of going on the internet and finding a picture of a guy who looks like Dave. And then I print that picture out, I put it up in my office. And it gives me that inspiration to keep talking with him. So it really comes down to the quality of the research that you do. Me, I put a lot of effort into my clients. So I don't take on tons of clients.
Mhm.
But I can tell you that my process actually works because I've got a client that's been with me since 1995. Most of my clients have been with me for 5, 6, 7 years. I guess the key with it is to be as connected to the product as much as you possibly can. Be as connected to your audience as much as you can. This is why when and I see this all the time. Company will turn around, they'll hire on a social media manager, and the social media company will come in. They'll say, "Okay, yeah, give us some money, and we'll start." But what are they posting? Like, do they know anything about the company? Do they know anything about the product? They just start posting. And I'm not saying every company does this, but a lot of them do. It's like people who build websites, that, oh yeah, we're going to have a website up for you in a couple of days, or a week. I mean, I just don't know how you do that if you're emotionally connected to the company or to the product. Like you don't start with a website, you end with a website. You don't start with social media, you end with social media. What is the stuff you start with is the research. It's the understanding. It's getting into that warm and fuzzy feeling that you know what you're talking about. You can't just post for the sake of posting.
Right. Well, and I would think too that having testimonials from somebody or sharing like case studies would be helpful. I think especially maybe the testimonials, because those are coming from your actual customers. So they're
Right.
saying how great your product or service is compared to you saying how great that is. But then how would you get that wording correct or have them, I guess, how do you first ask them to give that to you? And how would you have them give that information so that it does get to those feelings again that you want to tap into?
Okay. So what I do, if you've been to my website, I have tons of testimonials on my website because I'm a big advocate of social proof. It's really important that it's not just a client that says, if you're going to do social proof, you've got to not only have multiple, but you've got to have it over a range. So in my case, I've got people on there that I've trained. I've got salespeople on there I've trained. I've got clients that have been with me for years. Even projects that I've done, small projects where I've got those in there. So I've got a good crossover. So the first thing I would tell people is to do this, is to, if you have more than, a few clients, make a list of them. Okay. That's the first thing. The second thing you want to do is you want to, for me, I always have a great relationship with my clients. Like I have one client, I went to his Diwali party this year.
Hmm.
I've got other clients, I help them move, different things like that. So it's a very friendly relationship with my clients because my clients stick around for so long. So it's easier for me to go to them and say, hey, listen, you know what? Are you happy with the work we do? And this does two things. If he says, oh, yeah, Randy, you know what? We're really happy. Well, then great. Give me a testimonial. Okay. Or, can you write me a short paragraph that, tells me emotionally how you feel about my product or service or whatever the case is. And I always make sure I add the emotional side into it. Now, and if they're not happy with your service for whatever reason, it gives you the opportunity now to change that. It gives you an opportunity to fix it because you know what? A lot of times people won't tell you. They'll just say, oh, well, I'm just not going to pay you anymore. Or we've decided not to go with you anymore, whatever the case is. So keeping ahead of that does twofold. And the other thing is too, so once I've done it, they'll say, well, what do you want me to write? I say, I don't know, man. I want you to tell me how you feel. And then what I'll do is I'll put it, I have a little email template that I use and I'll just send them that. Okay. And it'll say in there, if you're writing a testimonial for me, please make it, paragraph long. Make sure you use words like emotional words in your that type of thing. And so what I do is I send them an email. And of course, I always thank them in advance for doing it. And I provide them with links in order to, if I want it on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever it is. I always make sure I make it as easy for them to do as possible. And then it's really important that you present the testimonial in the right light. Like I always include a picture of the client. I always make sure I put the company name in there. I make sure that I put the guy's name and the woman's name that did the testimonial. You know what? I make sure I do that because that's part of my commitment to my customer as well, is to present them in the best possible light. So yeah, that's my process.
And I think too, if you have a name or company name associated with it, it makes it more valid, right? People are going to trust it more than if it just has, the first name and an initial and like no company name. At least that's kind of the perception that I get when, I've talked to other people about, testimonials or things too. So what is your opinion on that?
You know what? I think authenticity is probably the most important thing. No matter what you do, it's authenticity. Okay. Dave L with ABC Company isn't a testimonial. That's a
Mm-hmm.
testimonial that you wrote for yourself. And that's how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it. And I don't know that I'm the only person who sees it that way. I think most people do. You know, when you're on a buying page and you have the the little pop-up that comes up at the bottom, I can't remember the name of it right now.
Yes.
Comes up and says, Susie S just bought. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or Susie S from Arlington, Virginia, just bought the product. Susie S, who is that? Okay, there are so many ways of getting content. I mean, if I wanted to go to find a picture of you, Candy, online, I'm sure I could find probably a couple of dozen to choose from.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Take some time, make some effort. You know, when you do things sloppy, it shows who you are. So if you become meticulous about the things you do with your customers, because you don't know who your next customer is going to be. Okay? You just don't. And I think that's one of the things that, excites me every day is the fact that, you know what? I was speaking at a live event last week, and we were talking about marketing. And after the live event was over, I got 4 people come up to me and said to me, here's my card. Call me next week. I want to work with you. I'm thinking, hey, that's great. Now, will I work with all 4 of them? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 64 years old, my dear. I'm at the point in my life now where I only want to work with people that I really, 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 really like. Okay? I can't work with angry people anymore. It just sucks the life right out of you,
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think you don't know who that next customer is going to be. And you don't know what they've seen or who they've talked to about you. So being able to maintain a level of consistency in your website and in your messaging is so important.
Mm-hmm. So true. Well, I know we're coming to the end of the time we have together today, so I would love to ask if you have a method you would like our listeners to reach you by if they would like more information.
Absolutely. You can reach me through email at randy@fearlessmarketer.com. You can go to my website, www.fearlessmarketer.com, or you can reach out to me on social media. I mean, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I'm pretty easy to find. And just so that you know, Candy, I do answer all my emails myself.
Perfect. Nice. Well, thank you so much, Randy, for being a guest on my show and talking about this topic. And it's something I find, interesting to talk about emotions along with marketing. We don't always talk about that aspect of it. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in today. I hope you found this topic interesting and enjoyed the informative discussion. Would you please share my show with those you know and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform? I'd really appreciate your support. If you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to my guest at any of the links that they shared, or you could send me a message at media@abandp.com. I hope you can join me for my next interview, and remember, you can connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and my website is abandp.com. This episode is sponsored by Affordable Bookkeeping and Payroll Services. If you are overwhelmed trying to handle the financial aspects of your business, AB&P is here to help. Contact us today to discuss your needs at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.